So Intel just announced their latest CPUs, the 10th gen 14nm plus. Is it enough to compete with AMD? Let's take a look at what they've just announced and work our way through them. Starting with probably the cheapest options first, so those Celerons and those Pentiums, working our way up to the brand new, newly announced 10-core monster, the 10900K. What's up guys, my name is Carl and welcome back to the channel. If you are new around here and my face doesn't offend you, I like to produce videos about PC builds and other pieces of tech, so consider smashing that subscribe button to see more. Quick question for you guys, what processor are you using in your current build? And are you thinking of upgrading to Intel's 10th gen CPUs? Leave your comments down below. So on the 30th of April, Intel announced they have a huge amount of new CPUs coming for their new 10th gen lineup, as well as unveiling their new LGA 1200 and Z490 chipset, and also accompanying motherboards. So if you want to get a 10th gen CPU, you will absolutely need a new motherboard. You can't buy an older one, like you can with maybe an AMD CPU. You couldn't just pick up maybe an old B350 to get you by for now. Though there is a small sign of some maybe potential upgradability with the Z490 is the fact that the motherboards support PCIe Gen 4, though these 10th gen Intel CPUs don't. But the 11th gen might, hopefully. Oh, and they also come with Wi-Fi 6. Woohoo! One thing that a lot of reviewers and people haven't really mentioned though is whether Intel have decided to update their terrible included coolers they ship with their CPUs, which I'm 99% sure they haven't. If you get a K series chip, you don't even get a cooler at all. Look at this thing, for God's sake. Which for me is a big deal. If you go out and buy a Ryzen 5 3600X or something like that for around $200, the cooler's pretty good. It's not great for overclocking, but it's quiet at idle, not too bad under load. And the best part is, it's free. The more you spend with AMD, you maybe get a 3700X or something like that, you get this thing. This is pretty big, it's beefier, it's cooler. It's got RGB. Cooling is something that Intel seriously needs to address. I've taken a look at these slides that they've just run out, and they're pushing the power limits of all of these new CPUs. They are going absolute balls to the wall with this. We've now got an i5 with a 125 watt TDP. And if you want to hit those 4.8 to 5 gigahertz speeds, you're going to be needing to spend at least $40 on probably like a Hyper 212, or maybe a cheap liquid cooler. So then you must add that onto the price of your already $250-ish i5 you just bought, and that's pushing you extremely close to $300. Starting with the cheapest options, the Celeron and the Pentiums. There isn't really much to say about them. They've had an increase in clock speed to each tier of CPU. So the absolute cheapest CPU, the G5 900, is now rocking a 3.4 gigahertz base clock speed, up from last year's kind of 3.2 gigahertz base. Pretty much seems to be the same story across all of these Pentiums and Celerons. A 200 megahertz bump in clock speed and an increase of TDP from 54 watts to 58 watts compared to last time. Intel's top end Pentium though, with 2 cores and 4 threads, is priced at $86, and it will compete directly with AMD's Ryzen 5 1600AF, a 6 core 12 thread 12nm beast, for that price. AMD are happy to release and update older CPUs to keep them viable at lower price points. The problem is, Intel aren't likely to do that. If the 9600K from last year dropped to $100 or so this year, new from retailers, then Intel might actually have something worth shouting about. But we're not going to see that, are we? As we step up to the i3s and the i5s, that's where things finally start to look positive for Intel. And I feel like this is where they can really start to compete with AMD. Again, this year, as long as they can deliver some quality H series or B series motherboards, maybe even some cheap Z series motherboards as well. The cheapest i3, the 10100, now comes with hyper-threading, so 4 cores and 8 threads. This is probably going to be outperforming or level with any kind of 4-core 8-threaded i7 that was released a couple years back. So your 7700K and beyond, you're going to get outdone by an i3 now. This i3 is sporting a base clock of 3.6 GHz and a single core boost up to 4.3 GHz and an all-core boost of around 4.1 GHz, of course providing it has enough cooling and a capable motherboard. And that'll be pretty much applicable for all of these CPUs. And at $122, that'll be competing with AMD's upcoming Ryzen 3100 and 3300X CPUs, though AMD's Ryzen 3100 will be available for $99, and the $120 3300X will arrive with matching boost speeds of the i3 10100. It'll be interesting to see which of those is better for each task. If your workflow involves multi-threaded workloads like video editing or streaming, then the Ryzen 5 1600AF and the Ryzen 5 2600 still have no competition at this price, so maybe worth just getting one of them still. Moving up the chart, it may be worth considering one of the other i3 CPUs, depending on what they actually sell for at retail. If there's a massive price difference, don't bother. But if they're kind of maybe $10 more, because the i3 10320 will boost up to 4.6 GHz, which is insane and would be great for gaming. The new Intel i5 10400F though, could well be Intel's golden chip. At $154, that'll be competing with the Ryzen 5 2600 and 3600. And the 3600 is going for about $175 right now. Though the Ryzen CPU does offer overclocking and a nicer cooler, it'll be interesting to see how this i5 actually stacks up. I'd expect it to be extremely close to the 3600 or potentially outperform the 3600 in quite a few games. As we move up to the i5 10600K and KF, just look at that TDP, 125 watts, which is absolutely insane. I'll expect you'll need a serious cooler to keep this thing cool, so do bear that in mind when looking at these $240-ish to $260 prices. When it comes to gaming and multitasking, I imagine these chips will probably crush the 3600 and 3600X, thanks to their insanely high clock speeds. And as they're also unlocked, you may even be able to quite easily hit 5 GHz on these things, pretty much giving you 8700K levels of performance, with probably a little bit more left on the table. Though please again, bear in mind the price difference here. Including the price of a solid cooler, of which K-series CPUs do not ship with, you'll be expecting to pay close to maybe $100 more than a 3600. Then once you've got a decent cooler on there, you'll be awfully close to a 8-core 3700X CPU, which includes a cooler. Finally, we reach the new i7s and i9s. Last year's i9s are basically this year's i7s, and that is pretty cool. The new i7s and i9s also take advantage of Intel's new Intel Turbo Boost 2.0 technology, which allows more or less all of these i7s and i9s, other than the cheapest two i7s, to hit up to 5.1 or 5 GHz on a single core. If we're under 70 degrees, then we can boost up to 5.2 GHz on a single core with Intel's Turbo Boost Max 3.0 technology. Yep, that's the stuff, that's what we need. And there's even another one, Intel Thermal Velocity Boost technology, which is only available on the i9s, can enable your CPU to hit up to 5.2 GHz or 5.3 GHz on a favored core. This sounds insanely fast.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
And also great cooling. To hit any of those speeds, you're going to need to keep your CPU temps down low. Whether that's a combination of maybe undervolting or liquid cooling, or even strapping an air conditioner to these things, they're going to need some serious cooling. We're probably talking 280, 360mm all-in-one coolers, or maybe the big chunky NHD 15s to keep these things cooler. I say cool, I mean acceptable, maybe 80, 90 degrees. The 9900K is a big CPU for gaming still, and a lot of other tasks to be honest. But at $500, it was a really hard sell. You were up against a 12 core. But if you look at the i7 10700K at $375, it's basically a 9900K with its TDP increased from 95 to 125 watts. That'll probably be the best value, high-end gaming CPU. The 9900K still outperforms the 3950X in gaming, so I expect this i7 to do the same, or even perform better than last year's 9900K. Now as we step up to these new i9s, these now come with 10 cores and 20 threads. The top tier 10900K will go on sale for $488, and that probably seems about right. Intel still has a huge loyal fan base, and a lot of people out there are more likely to buy an Intel product over an AMD product. If the 10900K lives up to the hype and you can properly cool it, then it will probably be extremely close to the 3900X in multi-threaded workloads, even though it has 2 cores more and 4 threads more. And in some aspects, due to improved latency in Intel's architecture and the fact that so many programs have been adapted and optimized for Intel CPUs over the years, I'm looking at you, Adobe, the 10900K will probably outperform it. So if you want killer performance in, say, the Adobe suite of programs like Premiere, After Effects, Photoshop, then the 10900K will probably crush the 3900X, probably. The beauty of all of this probably means one thing. If these Intel CPUs do well, then AMD will likely release their new Ryzen 4000 CPUs later this year, and combat Intel's 10th gen and potentially blow them out of the water like they did with their 3000 series chips. And knowing what AMD has been like for the past few years, probably at lower price points as well. Whether it sabotages old products or not, they're happy to keep the momentum and keep their popularity going. Which at the end of the day, in turn means better, cheaper, faster CPUs for everyone. Whether you're an Intel or AMD fanboy, AMD has changed Intel's strategy, period. They forced Intel to add hyperthreading to all of their CPUs. Even i3s have hyperthreading now, which is just such a win for consumers. Budget gaming PCs are going to be awesome and fast, whether you're on Team Blue or Team Red. I actually chose Team Yellow as my first team. Competition is great for everybody. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave a comment down below about what you're rocking and if you're considering upgrading later this year. Maybe you're going to look at a 10th gen or wait for AMD to bring something out later in the year. And if my face hasn't offended you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so we can see each other again soon. I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Cheers.